Hello and welcome to Nerdist Book Club. I'm Hector Navarro, and joining me as always are the amazing Maude Garrett and Rachel Heine. Hi.
Hello. What
Hi.
are we?
My heart's a little fragile talking about this portion of the book.
Yep.
Well, let's not pull any punches and let's get right into it. Huge thanks to all of you at home in the chat joining us. If this is your first time, let us know in the chat so that we can say hi. And I just wanted to also ask everybody what they're drinking. I got some red. I don't know what this is, but it's delicious. Anybody? No, nothing? Anybody? Okay.
Mango claw. I got my claws out again. I just realized that, I don't get drunk on them really, and I don't have hangovers. So.
Oh.
That's good. I just forgot to get anything, and it's
Well,
just one of those
too late now.
weeks, years.
Yeah.
Like the
But
opening
you know
to the
what
Friends
though?
theme?
I think this is a bit real, but I think it's a really great thing that instead of like being like that and be like, I deserve a drink, I need a drink, you're like, I don't even have a drink. So I think that's
Plum forgot.
Just was like, oh, too late now.
Too late. We got some nice comments in the chat. Stargirl314 says, after a stressful day at work, I'm so happy to be sitting here unwinding with you all. And NYX Wing 38 says, ooh, so fresh looking, Hector. Thank you so much. I got a haircut. We really, really appreciate it.
First one in how long?
Months and months and months. My girlfriend cut it here at home, so I did not leave at all. So
She
I
did a
was
good
just here
job.
at home.
She did a
Thank
good
you.
job.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell her. I'll tell her.
Yeah.
I'll tell her. That's I
I've
agree. I thought it was fantastic.
I think a lot of barbers have been like just sweating bullets the last year because everyone's just had to manage.
Yeah,
Yep.
people can do it at home. I mean, it doesn't always look this great, but you can do it at home. So before we jump into talking about the book, first thing is first, what would you rate Star Wars Dark Disciple overall? I want to start with you, Maude. What would you rate it?
If I can give it a half, I'm going to say 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was such a compelling story. I love that this was the story that was nearly not told through Clone Wars. And we got a very expansive look at a relationship that we'd never seen before. That was spectacular. The Force is strong with this one.
Ooh, very nice. I like that little like reading rainbow ending. You don't have to take my word for it. Really good. Rachel, what is your book report on Star Wars Dark Disciple? What would you rate it?
I would rate it, I think, a 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed this book. It is sort of a spy thriller, tragic romance set in the Star Wars universe. So obviously that ticks all of my boxes. I do have some mixed feelings about the ending, which I am excited to talk to you all about, but I really loved the book. So 4 out of 5.
If we were to, I feel like we're all working with roughly the same scale, which is something like 3 stars is good, 4 stars is really liked it, 5 stars is loved it. I'm going to give it 5 stars. That's what I gave it when I first read it like a year or two ago. And re-listening to the book, I think I'm still going to give it 5 stars. It despite some of the same issues I think I have that you do, Rachel, that I'm really looking forward to talking about. Overall, 5 stars. The audiobook, however, I think I'm going to have to rate it 2 stars because I really did not vibe with it. Turns out I don't like audiobooks. I'd rather read it in my own head by myself. So those are our rankings, our ratings, and it looks like everybody has been dropping them in the chat. We got 4.5 stars from Steven
I
Summers.
give the audiobook 4 out of 5. It would have been perfect, but Mace. And I think that just like nailing Count Dooku, nailing Obi-Wan,
Yoda.
and then, the enhanced experience having the soundtracks and music and symphony all in there. So good. I loved it.
Well, let's just jump in. First of all, I want to address this great comment from Miss Necromancer in the chat. Okay, I have a question about the ending. Is this technically a fridging? And in case anybody's watching right now, they don't know what that is. That is a term that originated in comic books. Thanks, comics. I love you, comics. You're great comics. Where a female character is killed off to further develop the male character's storyline and kind of push that forward. And it came from a female comic book character who was a girlfriend of Green Lantern in the 1990s. She was killed by a serial killer or a bad guy and stuffed into a refrigerator. That sort of violence against women, that sort of too often types of storytelling that we see in genre stuff, especially. I think that the answer is ultimately yes, but I think that it is a lot more careful than a story that I would typically normally point at and go, they fridged a female character in that. You know what I mean? Because I think that even that term fridging, I think it also implies like it's sort of careless and not thinking about female characters' agency in a story, or how female readers will take it, and what kinds of those kinds of effects. I think usually fridging a character is just sort of, we don't give it a second thought.
I'd like to invite putting a Star Wars lens on this though, and that is the arc of redemption. And this is something that we see time and time again in Star Wars, where someone starts off bad or become bad or were bad or have gone to the dark side, and then start exploring what redemption looks like. We've seen it with Kylo Ren, we've seen it with Darth Vader. And I think in this instance, she had a really fulfilling arc where she started off, technically as a Jedi, moved into being a Sith, and then branched out from that again and became a bounty hunter, and then kind of like, teamed up for the first time, which she's never done as a loner before, and then was teaching a Jedi about the dark side, and she ended up finding the light. And I think that in terms of how Star Wars treats their villains, and if there is a redemption arc, then this was her time. But I definitely felt there was an option here, because there was so much back and forth. Who is it? Is Voss on the good side? Is he in the dark side? Like, what's happening? Is he a Jedi? Is he? And it just kept going back and forth. And so I wanted to know what it looked like if it was Voss whose chapter ended, or whose story ended instead of Ventress, and why it was necessary for Ventress to end. And I'm wondering if that was already preconceived and pre-written, and then Christy Golden had to write within the confines of what the episodic arc within Clone Wars would have looked like. So yeah, they're my two parts. But I mean, if Voss lives, and I think last week you said that he survived Order 66, then if he's the one that's going to survive, let's get more of him. Let's I want to be doused in Voss.
Let's see him. I don't think he appeared in Star Wars Rebels, which is the show that takes place after the Clone Wars animated series. I don't think he was in the Solo movie. I don't think he was
Apparently
in Rogue One.
Was in the background of a scene in Phantom Menace.
That's true. Yeah. Somebody
Background
retroactively
Really?
pointed to a background guy sitting at a table, and they're like, that's Quinlan Voss, because he had like locks and the little, tattoo thing. But I agree with you, Maude. I think that if if Star Wars as a whole really looks at the story and puts a lot of weight on it, the same way that they looked at Ahsoka Tano's storyline through her animated stuff and put a lot of weight on it and brought that character to live action life, I say let's find a way to do that same thing with some future Star Wars project. Great comments here in the chat. Carlton Sanders says, I've missed this entire series. Asajj's redemption story arc was excellent. That's tough to say. Clever Girl says Ventress did make a conscious choice to save Voss at her own expense, and I agree with that. And I like how Maude brought up the examples of a Kylo Ren and a Darth Vader. I think those are great sort of valid examples of what Star Wars tends to do. But I also think that overall Star Wars has lesser female characters and emphasis put on female characters. It's getting better. Rey is a huge sort of tip in the overall franchise. I think that is a big help, but I look at. Do
you want to talk about how Star Wars did Finn dirty then? Because like that's a silver lining. We've got more sort of black characters, even though he's like sort of like nearly human. But yeah, Finn's storyline, it took me sort of a while to understand, because he did speak up to Kathleen Kennedy, and he was just like, there was so much room for me to have a hearty story, and at the end of the day, you just made it a love story between two of the white leads again. Totally.
And Star Wars, I think everything that I love about Star Wars has stuff where it's there's issues like that. I could even look at the original trilogy, and we talked about it when we read Bloodline, where it's like Princess Leia, even Carrie Fisher did not have a great progression in those. She started as a really, really fully fleshed and interesting character. By the time we got to Return of the Jedi, to me, it's sort of reduced to I'm Luke's sister, and then the gold bikini. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, but I look at the Clone Wars as a whole, and I look at the sort of minor appearances that Asajj Ventress has in that, and then this book, and then that's her whole story. And I'm like, that's frustrating because I would like to see more of this character, especially if she is a character who is so interesting but then killed off, but we get to see characters like Darth Maul make a return. They found a way to bring him back to life even after he was cut in half, and he was made more interesting. Boba Fett just got the same thing in Mandalorian, like he was effectively dead, and now this character is really interesting and has this sort of like, old man Logan style sort of approach to him. So it's just disappointing because I think Asajj is such a really, really, really compelling character. Rachel, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think I agree, Maude, especially in the Star Wars redemption arc, that it is really powerful. And I thought some of the writing, especially in the end, was particularly beautiful about how her sort of opening up to this other side of the Force, to the light side of the Force, and her goodbye, and as she's laid to rest. I thought that was all really beautiful. I also think that it does make sense that death is sort of hand in hand with redemption in the Star Wars universe. But I also think that Ventress has never really experienced any kind of closeness, anyone she could rely on ever. And the fact that she was able to kind of overcome that and learn from Voss, and that he doesn't just dabble in the dark side. He kills one of his oldest and best friends. And so for me, it was frustrating that she has this amazing character growth, but then doesn't live to fulfill it. And it makes sense that she would sacrifice herself for Voss in that moment, but there were a lot of other options that could have been interesting and flipped the script, and so it's not one of those kinds of stories or endings where it just really bothers me and I'm mad and I want to yell about it. Which is good. But I do, as I've been sitting with it, even though I thought it was really well done and handled, I'm like, man, she has never been able to catch a break. And yet this, Voss, who I have nothing against, besides the fact that he killed his best friend and a lot of other people, but so did Ventress. But the fact that he can come back to the Jedi after all that he has done multiple times, by the way. And, obviously he's hurting and he's grieving, but that he gets this, not just a full life ahead of him potentially, but welcomed back into a family where she's welcomed back to her dead family. But I don't know, just didn't seem, I would have liked to see her maybe go off and live her own life off the grid until she comes back.
Fulano mentioned in the comments, I'm a little sick of so many redemption arcs requiring death.
Yes.
I feel very similar with that. What is the point of redemption? Can you only sort of fulfill redemption if you sacrifice your life? But what is the point of redeeming yourself if you can't sort of see the fruitions of that redemption? Like she sacrificed herself to be with him. Their whole conversation was, I'm going to quit the order to be with you. She's like, I'm going to invite someone in my life. And it was like, they had this promise to each other. So yeah, I feel like in this instance, it would have been great where if she nearly died, I actually did think at the end with all like the green sort of mist coming off the water, I was like, oh my God, it's a life force. She's going to get her life back. No, but I was like, but there's room for it. But then at the same time, it's like, if we are reviving or resuscitating or bringing back so many characters, like you were just saying, Boba Fett, Maul, is it this thing where death loses any sort of depth, or like, because I've said this time and time again in the comic book world, especially sort of like in the fantasy geek genre world, the reason why it's called nerd is because no one ever really dies. And it's like,
that's so clever. What is geek?
I can't I can't claim that. It's actually the name of Pharrell Williams's band.
That's true.
Yeah, and then like when he said that, I was like, no one ever really dies. And I was like, it's the same in the comics, man.
It's this, yeah, absolutely.
And I think it depends
Star
on
Trek.
also the lore and the world, you know,
Yeah.
like there are certain like in comics, you always, again, you expect that, well, they'll be back in some form, but then in certain, I just, for some reason, popping into my head is American Horror Story Coven, which obviously I dug for many aesthetic purposes, but they started bringing back like killing off characters and bringing them back in a way that by the, final episodes, I was like, okay, well, does anything matter? Having existential crisis. But I do agree, and I think that bringing back deceased characters can do that, especially in Star Wars. But I also wonder, is Star Wars as a business and franchise going to bring back a female character the same way that they would?
Look, it's one thing
because we know that the fandom gets all riled up.
It's one thing to get really to really defend the bringing back of Darth Maul and Boba Fett, because
which I screamed.
It's awesome.
In Solo, at the end of Solo, I was like, oh, I want to see this, and I really dug. I thought I wouldn't care about Boba Fett in The Mandalorian because I was like, I don't need him, but it was really well done.
Tim Morrison is just delightful. I love him. But those things have great storytellers working to make that all make sense. And I do believe that Darth Maul and Boba Fett, they did craft enough of a good enough story and reason for them to come back that I'm into it. But let's not kid ourselves. Darth Maul and Boba Fett are also like fan favorite male characters that for decades, or in the case of Darth Maul for 20 years, that male fans have always been like, they're so badass. I love these characters. Oh, how, and you can just tell that sort of focus and energy is put on those characters. And I feel like Asajj Ventress should also be in consideration, at least, because to me, she is just as good, if not better, than those two characters at least were originally before they died. So, to be able to, I think it would just be something that could almost balance the books in a way, if they also found a way to bring back Asajj in some fashion, or like Maude said, even focus on Quinlan Vos and bring this character back in some Star Wars media.
Vos.
Yeah, and that could even be a great way to kind of further tell a story of Asajj Ventress. If they're going to fridge a character, commit to it, and let's see the rest of Quinlan Vos's. When Peter Parker lost his girlfriend, Gwen Stacy, in the 70s, he became a more interesting character. And that's an unfortunate thing, but that is, and his character benefited for years until we got Spider-Gwen. And now a version of her can come back and be awesome. But let's see the benefit on Quinlan Vos. I think it would be fantastic. Great comments in the chat. Nathan S. says, Ventress could be a different kind of Force ghost. S. Marcy says, I really hope they do bring her back, even if it's for a comic or a novel. And NYX Wing 38 says, could Ventress be brought back through the Night Sister magics? And some another great comment here from John Adams in the chat. He said, I really thought they would save her. She seems like too good a character to write off without making a ton more content. And to that, I also want to read Madeline K's comment. Madeline says, the best female Star Wars characters have originated from Clone Wars and Rebels, with Ahsoka, Hera, and Sabine, in my opinion. And now I would add Asajj Ventress as one of the best female characters in the franchise. Okay.
I got a little bit of I did some research.
Yes.
Like Quinlan Vos, I thought he was a new addition. I didn't realize that he actually did quite a lot in the expanded universe, which is no longer canon. But he was a figure that was, in the Jedi Council. But he was in the comics, because there was a lot of comics back in the days. And he was a lot more serious and stern, and he was like struggling and battling with the dark side. And then apparently this Clone Wars version, where he was like sort of uppity and a bit of a scoundrel, and super happy-go-lucky, a lot of fans were just like, what? That's just not what he's like. So this book actually shows both versions of Quinlan Vos, where he starts off super happy-go-lucky, but the more that he has to struggle with the dark side, the more serious he becomes. And listening to it the second time through, knowing all the information, you could actually hear the voice actor deliver his lines with way less pep. That spark was gone, and it was like forced, pun intended. But it was like, and he was a bit more gravelly, like he was just literally struggling and fighting with the dark side within. So again, the audio.
That description of him when Anakin and Obi-Wan are sort of hiding under Dooku's desk, which is really funny.
Those
And
boys.
Quinlan Vos just looks like he's aged, 10 years since Obi-Wan last saw him at that point. I also, speaking of like funny stuff, because this part of the book gets even heavier and is very sad, which I like normally. I love a good sad story, but I also really enjoyed some of the like fun Star Wars moments. Like I actually like snorted out loud when I read the part where Anakin has the brilliant idea to sort of commandeer the droid ship, and they're behind them and can speak in, and he keeps doing like the Roger Roger while he's trying to get through, and he starts to say it again, and Obi-Wan's just like, no. No. I was like, I could feel that in my bones. I'm like, no, but like, good job, but we're done with the Roger joke.
I mean, you can see a mile away how Anakin was destined for the dark side. Like just like Obi-Wan seems like a frustrated parent trying to sort of like put rules and regulations on a toddler. And he was just like, it's that thing where he just started having to accept it. He was just like, all right, I guess he's just going to do whatever he wants to do, and I can't keep him in check.
Well, and there's this great quote too when Yoda finally sort of goes to Voss and senses that he's gone over to the dark side, and Obi-Wan is just like, oh, my Ventress was right. And I was like, put that on a bumper sticker.
I loved how it happened as well. Like,
and Yoda basically, he says, dull this. I don't know if someone wants to read this in a Yoda voice.
Oh, go Hector, do Yoda.
Yeah. Where is it?
Down top of the second page.
Yoda reconvenes with Obi-Wan and Mace Windu to reveal that Voss has indeed fallen to the dark side. Obi-Wan thinks of Ventress, who saw it when no one else did.
Dull the senses, attachment does, but open the eyes, betrayal can.
Yoda said. Oh, his voice still so very kind, so understanding.
Open now, they are, and act we must.
Thank you guys for getting my roommate to laugh. I really appreciate that. Laughing at my shitty Yoda impression. That's great.
Good, though.
What I really liked about this moment was Yoda saying, what was it? It's like such a, because it's like a really focusing on their strengths and powers. And Yoda was saying how
his
psychometry, so he can understand sort of like the past of an object, but Yoda can understand like the past of one's soul, or like he understands sort of like the communication of one's soul, and that's how we saw it. And that was like so cool, because listening back again the second time, Obi-Wan makes so many excuses. He's like, this is happening because, well, that makes sense, so therefore that's what it is. And he's making all of these excuses the whole time again, which is so obvious why Anakin would turn to the dark side right under Obi-Wan's nose, because Obi-Wan,
and I also
he's a disconnected dude, isn't he?
Well, but he also, I think we were talking about this last week as well, but the sort of contrast between in a lot of Star Wars of this era, but between Obi-Wan and Mace Windu, and Yoda Yoda is almost like the balance within the Jedi Order, because before, obviously, he spends a lot of time on Dagobah, where he starts getting a little loopy. Look, quarantine comes for us all. But I'm pretty loopy at this point. But I like that Yoda doesn't want to go too far to the dark side, does want to give, all of these different potentially dark side folks, wants to give them another chance. But he also sees that they have to reel this in at some point, whereas Mace Windu is always like, nope, execute him, get rid of him, kill him, do the thing. And Anakin is almost always siding with Mace Windu, which is interesting given what we know about what happens,
which is breeding each other's chaos. And Mace Windu really does have an arc in his story where he does get a little bit more just frustrated and leans into chaos instead of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And also
great comment from Weirwood saying Like if Windu wanted Dooku assassinated so bad, he should have done it himself. He could have done that without questioning his belief in the light side, which I think is a great point. Jay Buntrock says you could say Obi-Wan took the high ground. You could say that. You could say
I
that.
love that. Who was it that, like, I think it was Desh who even called it out.
Yeah.
Oh, we are always taking the higher ground.
Higher ground. Jay Buntrock also had another comment earlier saying, this is after Anakin kills all the sand people over his mother, right? I was hoping for something from Voss sensing the dark side in Anakin, a thought or a conversation that would have been interesting. Like, yeah, like game recognized game. Like there would have been something like, you got something in you.
But instead they were
Voss
kind of
doesn't
at each
even know
other's
that
throats a
he's
bit.
on the dark side. Voss has completely just talked himself into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another interesting thing about about some of the relationships in this, where I noticed that Dooku even at one point is like, well, team up with me, Voss, and we'll get rid of Sidious. A, did you believe him? Do you think, because they do always try to end up killing their masters though. But B, it feels like at least the parallels between Anakin and Voss of thinking that you are smarter than the dark side.
Yep.
And that you can handle it. And then you just go deeper and deeper. And by the time you've already been turned, then you're like, well, I'll defeat the bad guy above me and then I'll be a benevolent.
You just described addiction.
Of course. I mean, and it's more so, do we think that that's a facet of the Sith or some just like pure evil?
No, it really is power. It's sort of like checking out or opting out of your personal values in order to get more power. Whereas Jedis kind of like restrict themselves by not their personal values, but the order's values. Right. So both are sort of wrong in that way, which is why more and more, this is very like, there's so many similarities and parallels to religion with this as well.
Absolutely.
But oh my God, this guy's so pretty outside. Sorry. The sunset is just like magnificent. 2 suns.
I was gonna ask.
I certainly think that it's that I agree with you. If I just do this one thing, I will be in control. I won't, and making excuses for your own behavior when you're spiraling.
And I think you can see that also in on the flip side, the characters around someone who is going through that and wanting, not being able to reconcile who this person used to be versus what they're doing now, and kind of hoping that they'll get better, or they're wrong about this. And you see that with Obi-Wan, with Voss, and Anakin, obviously, but also in Ventress. There were a couple parts at the end too where he says he wants to be with her, and all of these, as they start, basically once he tells her, oh, the council's sending me on another mission to assassinate Dooku, and then she was like, no, I'm absolutely coming with you, and he's like, oh no. It's like, you're manipulating her, and I don't know why, and I'm pretty sure you're on the dark side because you know that they're following you, you hope that like all of these different things. But progressively from that point on, there are so many red flags that Ventress just is like, and I don't think it's necessarily unrealistic, but it just hurts my heart that after she's, experienced so much pain and caused so much pain, and really just is like, if I can just get him past this, we can be together and I can be happy. And it's a very, symbiotic sort of relationship, not just them romantically, but the Jedi and the Sith, the Jedi trying to bring Sith back to the light side when they're going to have to want to do it themselves. It's a choice.
Like addiction.
So I just found all of that super interesting.
Yeah.
Game Wizard is
Rachel. Go ahead, Maude.
Oh, just Game Wizard is pulling in some gold nuggets in the chat. The first comment that he said is, until Anakin's betrayal, Obi-Wan believed in the good of people. I mean, just look at Ventress. But after Anakin's betrayal, he didn't trust Luke with the knowledge of his father, which could potentially have ended badly. So that was like the tipping point for Anakin.
Yeah, here's the thing I love about Star Wars is that you can retroactively go back and look at the planning of, well, George Lucas did not know that Darth Vader was going to be Luke's father at first,
Well,
and then turn it into a
Vader
story
means
thing.
father, so he did. I think he did. He
I
didn't
mean,
know that Luke and Leia would be siblings. But
I'm
Vader is German for father.
true, yes, but
So you knew that.
I'm pretty sure that he didn't, though. I think that there's early versions of the script and early versions of
It was Luke
you
and
know,
Leia being sisters and brother and sister. Yes, Rachel.
absolutely.
I don't think it matters because it just reminds, you know, when you're it's there was this kind of debate in my English program in college, English and writing, of, you know, looking at a piece of text, which you can extrapolate to be, you know, any kind of writing or storytelling. And does it matter, you know, intent or where, you know, what, intent, the writer's intent versus what comes out into the world. And so what I love about that is that, Hector, you are right in that you can go, you know, not necessarily, who knows about this particular thing, I'm sure both of you do, but that you could take anything from the original trilogy and be like, well, what about, but and know that the prequels weren't made and there isn't an answer to this question as it was created,
and it,
but the work
exactly.
And it's about your interpretation ultimately, and people can disagree with that, and that's should be fun to talk about. Isn't always.
But what I love,
always here, it's fun to talk about.
What I love is what Game Wizard is doing, that perfect thing where fans, and not only fans, but storytellers and people who are working on this franchise today can go back and go, even if something wasn't planned this way. And like you're saying, Rachel, it really doesn't matter if it was planned this way or not, but good storytellers can just add to it and go, you see, that's why the Death Star blew up so easily, because it was Galen Erso putting in, you know, I love that kind of thing, because all it does is just enhance the whole thing altogether. Game Wizard had another comment. Maude, do you want to read that?
Sure do. He's talking about the Jedi and the Sith code. I'll start with the Jedi and then just see how the Sith interpret and obliterate the Jedi code. So for Jedi, it's there is no emotion, there is peace. Already, it's like robot. Okay.
Wrong.
There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. So that's culty. Cool. And then the Sith is the first thing, obviously, like with the Jedi code, the first thing they said was there is no emotion, there is peace. The Sith code is peace is a lie. There is only passion. And of course, the next one for Jedi was there is no passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. If I looked and analyzed both of those, one is telling you all the things that you cannot do and that cannot be. The other one is saying, ignore all of that. This is the truth. And there is an ending if you persist. And I would, like, looking at those codes, I would go Sith any day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And
seductive.
Because one feels like a trap, like you are trapped, and the other one is literally saying, "I will set you free." You're
trapped, and also that almost an impossible standard.
Yeah.
For anyone to achieve, but then, on paper, definitely would go the Sith, which is why I know that there are stories of like thousands of years before the Jedi when
Darth Plagueis.
And yes, did you ever hear? It's not a story the Jedi would tell you, but there were types of the Jedi before they split that dealt in, shades of gray, if you will. And I just would like to see that explored more in modern Star Wars, because I think you can keep, I think The Last Jedi starts to do that, definitely. But it
starts to break down the sort of philosophy of the Jedi, is what
and
you're saying?
Also of learning. Like, I don't think that you lose the Jedi are good guys and mean well if you comment on maybe we need to evolve, maybe we need to learn something more about what balance means as people with emotions
it's like it's like you said, Rachel, it's an impossible standard. So let's everybody be a little nicer to old man Luke Skywalker, huh? Okay,
Oh,
he
yeah.
messed up. It's fine. He's still a hero. He's a good dude.
Oh, totally. He's
He
still a
didn't
hero.
kill his nephew. He didn't kill him. It's fine. He didn't go through with it. That's the important thing. Every day you don't kill your nephew, you're a hero. You're as much of a hero as Luke Skywalker.
That's a very low bar.
Yes, it is. We may have Madeline K. Great comment in response to this conversation. Why I respect Ahsoka's decision with the Jedi, which is fantastic, and they go through that in Clone Wars, and basically everything else that she's in. And also, just want to jump around to this great question you put in the script, Rachel. With when we were talking about Yoda, when we were talking about what he's picking up and what other people are putting down or not, you said we were talking about redemption in Star Wars. It seems like Yoda would agree that ultimately redemption is about a personal choice, not a specific gesture or forgiveness. And I would like to open that up. I mean, we briefly touched on Kylo Ren, but everything we're saying about Asajj Ventress feels like it could be applied to Kylo, because I'm somebody who, again, with the mythic storytelling of Star Wars, I completely understand why Ben Solo, Kylo Ren died at the end of the last movie. I do.
His redemption was a specific gesture, though.
It was, and so it's a little interesting, yeah, because it's a redemption.
I mean, I think it's more so, which you're right, that's sort of confusing, but I think by specific gesture, I more mean like by like a choice, a conscious choice to do something different, no matter what the cost,
and commit to
the cost. Versus, you know, when we were talking about Vader or Solo, like did multiple people forgive them? Like we know that Leia, from when we read Bloodlines, which you can watch on the YouTubes, that she was like, I don't care, dude tortured me and killed everyone on my planet, everyone I knew and loved. So, but it does feel like choice is such a huge part of the ending of this book, that Ventress makes a choice when she feels the light side of the Force, but then Voss also makes a choice because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to keep talking about the Ben Solo of it all, I've like I said, I was fine with and really understood the sort of storytelling choices they made at the end of that movie, how it was similar but different than Darth Vader, you know, the little romance aspect to it, all that stuff I understood. But then when you're online and you're a Star Wars fan, lots of people were like, well, how interesting would it have been if this character had lived? And if they had teased a sort of a setup of like, how would he actually put into effect him trying to redeem his past actions? How would he do it going forward in another Star Wars movie or a TV show or whatever? And I feel like the same thing can be applied to Asajj Ventress, like what you were saying earlier, Maude and Rachel. Like, how interesting would it have been if she had lived, and then we got to see her actually deal with everything, the events of this book, her past. So I think that there's potential for both of those choices, and just because it's Star Wars and it's very mythic and mythological, and for kids, I don't think it necessarily has to stay simplistic. And I believe that like the Darth Vader redemption, no, throwing down the Emperor is kind of a simplistic but very mythic and beautiful way to tie up that bow. So I think that there's room for both, and it could be and would have been interesting to had Ben Solo lived. I think it would have been interesting. What do you guys think?
I think also for me on the Ben Solo of it all, I would have liked to see a breaking of the cycle, because we do see this sort of the Skywalker saga, but also the father and son relationship, the lost child finding something in the dark side and going down this dark path. And I would have liked to see Ben Solo, have to deal with the aftermath of that, but also making the choice to not be a part of this. I think it would have, I mean, I could sell you on my fanfic for Rise of Skywalker, based on the general.
It's rising, right?
Not that kind. I'm sure I have that in my brain somewhere, but just generally like from a story perspective of how, you know, if he had done that earlier in the narrative of that movie, then you could have had all these things, blah, blah, blah. But I also, breaking the cycle. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Maude, any thoughts?
Go on.
I think that even though this book was written in 2015 and Rise of Skywalker came out after this, the way that I have seen redemptions from Vader to Ben to this one, redemption's getting sexier, and I'm about it.
No kidding. No kidding.
I agree with that. Oh, had a point.
I want to keep jumping around here on the script. I want to get to the part in this last section where they have snuck onto the observation deck before Dooku, and they watch as Quinlan Vos confronts the Sith Lord but does not kill him. Instead, he demands to meet Dooku's master. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Dooku then pivots to a new plan. Join me and together we can defeat Sidious. Obi-Wan and Anakin have heard enough. They arrest Quinlan Vos and Count Dooku and bring them back to their ship. Discuss. Do all Sith start out with seemingly good intentions to protect someone, to fix someone, and then do they get caught up in the dark side and a part of them wants to defeat their master, not just for power, but to make things right? That's an excellent question. Do these characters have a basis in doing something good for good's sake?
This is actually really parallel to sort of like what the dark side is. If I just get Dooku, then this will all be over. Oh, wait, the Sidious is above him. Well, if I can just get Sidious, then this will all be over. I just need more dark side. It's that unending sort of beast. And I think as soon as he sort of was like targeting Sidious over Dooku, which was the whole point of the mission, that's when he snowballed.
Yeah, and that it's actually, I'm going to pull up my Kindle Cloud Reader on the app because I found this really interesting, that when Ventress is dying and he's trying to explain to her, she basically, here it is. Yes. So she basically demands, like, you have to tell me the truth. What is going on? We're about to die. I've just been crushed in this tower. Like, what's going on? And he says, I did it for us. And to her, having lived through the dark side in many different forms and come out on the other side, she's like, it will destroy you. And I found this, one of my lights went out.
Oh, that. Oh, the dark side is coming.
Oh, this is dark. Okay, I'm gonna keep that.
In the light.
Because it's out of minute. But he said, let's see. I'll be the narrator, or no?
Where is this? What page?
It's page 291. It's such a good part. If you, I don't know, because I feel like Maude, you guys should read all of it. You guys are better at it than me. But
is it in the script?
No,
page 291. I have the book. I pulled it up.
Sorry.
I don't have.
Well, there's this. Do you want to? Now I'm just rambling, and anyway, never mind. Because
which part, Rachel? Which part?
Hector's got it.
Basically, when she says, you know, all we've been through together, all I thought we meant, you're going to tell me the truth. You owe me that much.
Definitely not on this page.
Okay, then it's a different version because it's Kindle. But essentially, she says, like, you know what he is. He'll destroy you the first chance he gets. And she says, I can handle him. I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude, you absolutely do not. And she says, what kind of life will that be? The kind where we're slaves to our hatred, our rage. That's what the dark side made me. That's what it does. Nothing is ever enough. You get more and more, but you're never happy. It's a trap. It's a trap. Baited with all the things you want most. That life, it's not worth living. She squeezed his hand, imploring. I already left that behind. You can too. You have a choice. And that I thought was really compelling and relates to what you were saying, Maude, about the dark side is just, if I get to this next part, if I get, which, you know, you could argue wealth does that. Look at how many very wealthy people are pretty evil and probably not that happy. So yeah.
Yeah, no, parallels to addiction are insane because there's no end.
Yeah.
And I think that really juxtaposes the Sith code. And once I get to that power and have all of that, then I will be set free. As soon as you start down that path, you will never be free. There is no free. And then you train someone else up and all they want to do is kill you. It's like
bad leadership. Bad leadership.
There's-
S. Marcy in the
like
chat
an
says
Ouroboros.
that was so crushing. She fully embraced the light, which is true. Rachel, can you just read that last sentence that she said, but just give us an Asajj Ventress impression, please? Because I feel like it's unfair that you didn't even try. Just a sentence.
I already left that behind. You get it.
That's all I got.
That's kind of it, yeah.
That's
It's
really
good.
bad.
It does a number on the voice, though, doesn't
yeah,
it?
that's-
It really hurts.
I'm already a smoker. Please don't make me hurt the voice. There's a really good comment though, and it actually leads into a quote that isn't in the script and sort of the ending, which I found just beautiful and sad and very powerful. Black Belt 23 says, I feel like Star Wars redemptions are mostly related to the Force. Vader and Ben came back to the light side, so they are redeemed. It's not necessarily their actions that are the important parts. And so the description of when she feels that flood through her, which I think is beautiful.
I got that one if you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and read that one.
All at once, warmth flooded through her. It was as if she was being bathed with soft light. It washed away the pain and the fear and the anger, leaving only perfect clarity in its wake. Ventress realized that it was the Force, but it had never felt like this, and it was giving her a gift. She had just told Voss that he had a choice about what path he wished to walk, and the Force was revealing to her the outcome of her own choices. Now, this moment, this instant, this breath, Ventress chose. Dun, dun, dun.
And that part was so beautiful and very well read. And that concept, I think, of the Force knows that they are back to the light side somehow. And so when I read this description, it kind of reminded me of, potentially like Luke in The Last Jedi, and these moments where you can, or even, you can feel not necessarily that he's going from the dark side to the light, but that he's going from the light side to this sort of transcendence. When he, in the end of The Last Jedi, when he disappears, dies. But that concept of you've reached this level of the light side, that means you've kind of surpassed life itself, and you are now part of the Force, which is, I guess, tied to the Jedi code as well. There is no death, there is only the Force.
If you strike me down now, I'll become more powerful than you could ever imagine.
Oh,
That's what
Alec has taught you well.
That's what Alec Guinness was talking about. Impressive, most impressive. Are we just quoting the movies now? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
Perfect. That's the best quote. What's the
know.
line in Rogue One? This is General Rados. What's that guy? That other.
Oh
Mon
yeah,
Calamari
I don't
guy?
know, because I legitimately screamed out loud in the theater
What part?
when well, actually, in is he in The Force Awakens? No, is Akbar's in The Last Jedi, or is he in The Force Awakens too?
Yeah. I think so. No,
I think I was at a press screening too, and
Last Jedi.
but he's also in The Force Awakens, is he not?
I think so, in the background and stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
He says something.
He says something, but as soon as I saw him, it burst out of me. I screamed.
Well, what I'm asking about Rogue One, when there's another Mon Calamari guy that shows
I
up
know.
in the ship, and he's like,
screamed at that point. What
Okay,
I'm
great.
saying
Okay.
was more intense when it was actually Akbar. But it was so, because I could not stop myself.
I think
My
Lee
brain
is helping.
went, it's a trap.
I think Lee is helping us out in The Force Awakens. I think Lee's right. Lee says, does he say that's no Death Star in Force Awakens?
Oh, that sounds right.
I think so. Anyway, all right. let's keep moving right along. That was beautifully read, Maude. Really, really nice. This next section, Rachel, you can take this section where Ventress snaps out of her trance. Go ahead and summarize us with that, and then we've got another little quote there.
Yes. So right after this amazing moment when Ventress makes her choice, she snaps out of her trance and pushes Voss away with the Force as Dooku sends a blast of the most powerful Force lightning that, that Voss has ever seen in their direction. She takes all of the Force lightning to save the one that she loves. Voss leaps into action. His grief and his rage are fueling him yet again, but when he has a chance to kill Dooku, this final time to seek revenge, he makes his choice. I am not your kind, Voss said, his voice thick. I do not feed off vengeance. Truth was quiet. It did not need to shout or to demand. It simply existed. I am a Jedi.
I am a Jedi.
As Obi-Wan and Anakin reveal themselves to arrest Dooku, Voss rushes to Ventress's side. She tells him she's proud of him. He chose loving her instead of hating Dooku. And as she lies dying in his arms, she tells him that she loves him for the first and the last time, which I thought beautiful.
Oh, here we go. Ready?
You must let me go, my love.
Ventress said, her voice so gentle, so tender, and she smiled lovingly.
It's the Jedi way.
Wait, we have to start over. Maude, please do it in that voice, and Hector, please read the narrator because
You got it.
it's
Here,
perfect.
That's exactly how it sounded in the audiobook as well.
It is. It really is.
I laughed out loud. It was really funny.
I'll set you up, Maude. I'll set you up. Asajj, no!
You must let me go, my love.
Ventress said, her voice so gentle, so tender, and she smiled lovingly.
It's the Jedi way.
And she was gone.
So gentle, so tender.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a great way, I think, to kind of to wrap up this section of the book and the book in general, because everything after this is that sort of falling action, the epilogue. But did Ventress have to die? Can Quinlan Voss really be redeemed after everything he's done? In my opinion, the answer to the first question, did she have to die? The answer is no. But I did think that it was well done in this story. Answer to the second question, can Quinlan Voss really be redeemed after everything is done? I think so, yeah. I think absolutely. I think that would be a great storytelling challenge for somebody to work on more future Star Wars stuff and go, you know what? You know who's a character I want to revisit? Quinlan Voss. And they could follow up on this novel, which I think is excellent. And because there's such a finality to it, and I think such a great depiction of these two characters, this really has become as an essential part of the Star Wars lore for me as Bloodline, where I'm like, this is right there with Clone Wars, the show. I think it's that important to experience. So for you two, did Ventress have to die? Can Voss be redeemed? Maude?
No. Yes.
Great. Rachel?
Same. Also, I remembered what I wanted to say.
Yay! Yeah.
There are two scenes in this that reminded me of romantic, tragic romance movies. And I want to know if anyone agrees with me.
I have one thing that I noticed as well. Please remind me.
So one was when Ventress is dying, the scene you both just read so beautifully, reminded me of the end of Moulin Rouge. He's holding her in his arms. She literally says, you have to let go, Christian. He's like, I love you. Okay, number one. Number two, the very end when he slips her into the water, Titanic.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Nice.
I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
We were talking about the genre of the book where it's like spy, thriller, and I'm like, Voss is essentially an undercover agent, and he's going back and forth trying to figure out what side and what team he's on. And that is a struggle that he has for ages, but he successfully convinces both sides. And I was like, that's familiar. Where have we seen that before? Voss is Snape with Han Solo's personality.
Okay.
Double agent, undercover.
Double agent.
I was like, I'm getting Snape vibes. Shouldn't. Maybe I need to read more books. But since we've covered Harry Potter over 7 months, I thought it was worth mentioning.
Absolutely. I would like to sort of sum up this part of the book because Maude, there's a section here, the very last section of the book that we would love for you to read, but to sort of refocus and put everything in the Star Wars timeline where it's supposed to go. Of course, this whole book happens before Revenge of the Sith because Dooku manages to escape the Jedi somehow. The Jedi bring Quinlan Vos and Ventress's body back to the Jedi Council. Vos confesses to everything, but Obi-Wan knows that he must speak up. Ventress didn't just save Vos's life, she saved him, and she saved the Jedi Order. They lost their way when they decided to assassinate Dooku. That mission was fueled by the dark side, and all of the pain and death stems from that choice. She gave her life for the Jedi, and Obi-Wan believes she deserves to be laid to rest with the utmost respect and care. After working with Yoda to heal himself and regain the Council's trust, Quinlan Vos is allowed to go with Obi-Wan to lay Asajj Ventress to rest on Dathomir. He brings her to her village, to the pool where he killed the sleeper, and says his goodbyes. And as she slips beneath the water, the pool begins to change color. Maude, if you would please read the last section of the book.
Tendrils of mist began to rise, green and glowing, green like the water of life. That's where I thought that the life of the water. Anyway, that's what I was betrayed.
I was really settling into a calm, and you're like,
Yeah.
Sorry.
no, it's fine.
Vos caught his breath. Soft serrations reached his ears. Susurrations reached his ears, sounding almost like Kenobi was beside him. Immediately, his lightsaber unlit, but in his hand. Vos, what's happening? Slowly, incredulously, Vos understood. His heart ached with a bittersweet joy. Listen, was all he said. Kenobi's eyes widened. He heard it too, now, the whispers of women's voices. The Force had reclaimed Dathomir's wayward child, and as Vos reached out in it to send the woman he loved a final farewell, he thought he could make out a single word, sister. Asajj Ventress at last had come home.
That's really lovely. That's really, really great.
That was sort of why I felt like, even though I wished we had been able to, explore redemption as alive, the fact that they're really the main family that she's had, and that she goes back to when she thinks of any of the good points in her life. So I thought that
absolutely. Did any of you guys choke up at all reading this or listening to it? I didn't, because I knew what the ending of the story was going to be, and the audiobook was kind of hit and miss for me. When it was hitting great. When it was missing, it was sort of ticking me out. But I feel like I remember the first time I read it that I did choke up in certain moments, especially towards this last section of the book. Were you guys moved in that way?
Well, I remember when we were the last show, it was like, what do you think can happen? And we were 3/4 of the way through the book. And I was like, either it's a happy ending for everyone or Asajj has to kill Vos. So I didn't predict this at all, but there was so much, is he, isn't he, will she, won't she, that like, it was a little bit of whiplash kind of getting into the final portion. But out of all the possible outcomes that we were led to believe, this one was a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And it got me.
Well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think I yelled no, really.
No, that's impossible.
I was like, no. Kind of pissed off, but then as I kept reading, I was like, okay, this is very well done and well written. But my instinct was like, oh, why her, not?
I know, but I think that the discussion.
But me not liking the ending doesn't mean that it's bad or that it's not well written, because I do think it's handled really, really well and has emotional impact.
And you're not going to demand that Disney remake it. So the important thing from this conversation, I think this was a little bit therapeutic for me tonight too, but I think that with hearing everybody and hearing the chat, I've almost like convinced myself that A, they can bring back Asajj Ventress if they wanted to, with some sort of Dathomir sister energy, to continue that, or B, we could get a follow-up story with Quinlan Vos that I would even consider to be really satisfying and interesting, and get into that. And C, like I said, this is vital for me. This is just as good as the rest of the Clone Wars show, especially because I really like Asajj Ventress, because when I was in high school, she first premiered in a Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars animated series, the 2D hand-drawn stuff, before they shifted over to a different show altogether. So I love my Genndy because I love Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, Primal. So I love this character. Loved this book despite the frustration of another female character gone, who's awesome. But we did it. That's the end of our show, which means it is time to start our next book, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. There it is right there. Your homework is to read.
I've already started.
To chapter 17. Stop at chapter 16. Read up to chapter 17. Stop. Read up to, so stop through 16. Yep. So 1 through 16.
16. Stop at 17.
1 through 16. Stop at 17. And I'm very excited to get into this big boy. That's a big boy. Maude, what are we doing next?
We've got the after show. So anything that we weren't able to touch upon in this 1 hour, there's a bunch of questions that I want to get into as well. Are you sad to say goodbye to this character? Are you ready to say goodbye to this character? Are you wanting to see more Quinlan Voss? Maybe we can fan cast or like talk about where he could pop up, all that kind of stuff we'll be doing in the after show, which is a Geekbomb Patreon perk. So if you've signed up to any tier for the Geekbomb Patreon at patreon.com/Geekbomb, you'll be entered into the sort of like locked off section of Geekbomb's Discord, where you'll find the reading section and the book club audio chat. So we'll all get there. We'll do a little Q&A and we can all talk and share as well. So join in.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week with the first week on The Name of the Wind, chapters 1 through 16. Stop at 17, and we'll see you over on the Geekbomb Discord. Bye.
And the ebook has maps at the beginning. Normally, ebook people don't get the maps. So
maps at the beginning of the story, and you're right there. Physical copy, baby. Maps. All right. So we'll see you guys in the Discord. See you next week. Bye.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.